May the devil be with you, Ben. Vivat Grendelben.
Set out running, but I take my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine.
Yes, he is. And right now, underneath us, we have a special friend of the devil from 5377. So I feel we might as well just start off with different friends of the devils. I mean, it's a gimmick. We got it.
Why not? There's so many of them.
It is.
Welcome to episode 4 of The Devil in Detail. It's our Grendel Reread podcast.
It is. And we have, it's a big book today. But before we get into it, let's see what's up with you, Ben. What have you been doing? How's this week been?
Well, my teaching job had me learning a storyboarding and pre-visualization software called FrameForge. If you're into the uncanny valley and truly bizarre visuals, see if I can do a little quick screen share of this. I cannot. So I've been working on that, and then I was just like nervous that they would want me to have all the ins and outs and stuff about the filmmaking process that I really don't understand. And I was like losing sleep over this. And then in the last half hour of my class, I gave my college students my kind of rundown on this software. And they were like, they had the same impression that I did, which is this is ridiculous. And like,
why do we need something extra?
Like, even though we can't draw, we would still never use this. So I felt great about that.
Yeah. And again, you teach at the Art Institute of New York.
Almost, at the New York Film Academy.
New York Film Academy. All right.
I teach storyboarding to the filmmakers and animation students. And they let me teach whatever I want. And in the past, I've done Mage and Grendel and all kinds of other comics that have just like really direct and straightforward artistic storytelling to them. So That's a lot of fun.
This week's new Grendel t-shirt brought to you by the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. I got a bunch of new Grendel shirts for the cast. It's a business expense. I'll just mark it as such. I've been, reading a bunch of books. I've been reading Mr. Monster. Do you read that? Have you ever read that?
I have one issue of Mr. Monster, and like right before quarantine hit, I was getting in the habit of ordering like for in-store pickup from my Midtown Comics.
Nice.
And like all the books I want were like $1.37, and I got the Mr. Monster, and I was like, this is obviously like destined to be one of my favorite books.
Oh, it's so creatively written and well written, and it's almost like Grendel in that there's this progeny and this line of Mr. Monsters for all time, and the Dark Horse series, this queen or this like king of the vampires type dude is like telling this story to his little punk rock nephew or something, or grandson, and talking about all the history of Mr. Monsters throughout time and how they're trying to kill and how they're trying to make this one stop being Mr. Monster to try to put an end to the family line. And it's just beautifully written and done. And I went and bought a few more off my comic shop too. I'm pretty psyched on it.
The only other Michael T. Gilbert is that I've seen and know is his Elric work. And that's a character who I feel like we should really put a little bit of time into exploring. I would love when Matt comes back to have him school us on Elric of Melniboné.
He did mention that as an inspiration when we were chatting with him.
The good guy who's the bad guy. So.
All right. I think it's about time. This is a big book. We might even have to break this up into 2 eps because there's so much amazingness to cover in the book.
Well, let's get into it. Drop that killer intro.
Let's do it. Devil by the deed. Here we go.
Two in the box, ready to go. Maybe fast, maybe slow. Yeah. Vivat Grendel.
It's like the devil is my best friend. Hunter rose with the pen to the fork end, or till time end. Like Orion, Jupiter my kin, bloodline private. We control the whole shit. The wolf won't beef, then we feast off the rip. Behold the devil in detail. Behold the devil in detail.
All right. Oh my gosh, that theme song is so great. I hope everyone heard it last week. That is by Manus Dunbar, my boy from Can I Flip It, and beats by Zach Johnson, aka Laserdisc. So check them out on Spotify. Check them out on Instagram at Laserdisc at Manus Dunbar. Thank you so much, Manus, for doing that, and Zach, it's huge.
What a great way to get into the main event. We've had an appetizer. We've been sort of finding our groove. And now we can really stake our claim on this absolute killer book.
Oh my gosh! Which first appeared in Mage number 6 as a backup story. Grendel. This is the first time that Grendel was in color. Was in the back of Mage, and here we have it. The first spread of Mage or of Grendel.
Yeah. Can you imagine being a Mage reader and being totally enthralled with what's going on, and then suddenly you're 6 issues deep, and this backup suddenly appears? I don't want to say out of nowhere, but
it's been a minute since Grendel, was out, and it kind of was like maybe some people at that point were like, "Are we ever going to see Grendel again?" Did you get to read the intro by Alan Moore in the community?
No, I've never seen it.
Wow, it's amazing.
Is it good?
He's such an amazing reader. I wanted to read a little bit. For any comic reader, creator. No, I'm just kidding. I won't read it like him.
For any comic creator who takes his work seriously, a large proportion of his everyday consciousness must necessarily be devoted to the nuts and bolts of his craft. Such considerations occupying that lobe of the brain that ordinary people use for thinking about sex, money, food, and life insurance. At almost any given moment of the day, the dedicated artisan will be turning new storytelling ideas over within his or her mind, pondering the perception of lapsed time in multi-panel, continuous background shots, mentally fiddling around with an imaginary Rubik cube of established precedents, half-formed theories, and half-baked impulses in a never-ending search for a new combination, a new pattern, a new way of telling a story.
Okay, yeah. Crazy, hard to read out loud.
To anyone who has been following the adventures of Kevin Matchstick and company through the pages of Mage with even half an eye, it must be evident that Matt Wagner does the same long, hard thinking before committing a line or a word to paper, evolving as a result a storytelling style that is once fresh, clean, and wildly innovative.
I mean, absolutely. And he points something out really interesting here as well. While Mage tells its story entirely in pictures and word balloons, avoiding captions and consequently creating a sense of narrative naturalism, Grendel, and this is speaking of basically just this book at the time, Grendel takes the opposite approach and approaches its verbal narrative entirely in caption form, adopting a more novelistic approach to its material. But, I mean, it's epically done. It's beautiful. There's been a few different releases. I have this hardcover version that was in a slipcase, but I didn't get the slipcase.
Ooh,
graffiti.
Yeah, well said, Mr. Alan Moore.
Oh, yes. There's also another version that I don't have, which is the Dark Horse hardcover.
Okay.
Check this.
Very nice. And then I was seeing a second print of that with a blue vertical stripe on the right hand side.
I don't have that one either.
Super cool. So,
but today we'll be reading from this one, Devil by the Deed, one of the all-time greatest comic books of all time.
Yeah, I feel like if I had to, it's a pretty deep cut for your normal comic book reader, and for someone who's not in comics, it's an artifact that you've perhaps never heard of. If I had to compare it to a bunch of things from the same time and place, I would talk about Killing Joke and Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, God Loves, Man Kills.
Yeah. But even it's still completely different than those books in that there's no word bubbles. It's all narration. It's complex and vivid storytelling that you rarely get from a comic.
Yeah, as a piece of meta textual fiction, it's a novel. It's excerpts from a novel written by a character from that world. And Matt was saying in our first episode, it's really written as if you, the reader, already know these characters. It's as if you were reading a book about Michael Jackson or about Michael Jordan or some other infamous figure who you kind of already knew the basic gist of. And this just takes you a little bit deeper. And I feel like when I recall early readings of it, that was absolutely the impression I got. You finish the book and you're just like, oh, is there more to this? Like what's going on? And the answer is yes, much more.
And like, I don't think this is for, like, it's not for the regular comic reader either, in that it really takes an investment of your time to like really get into it because of how in depth it is. And it's really going to grab you. Like it grabbed me so hard. And another thing I wanted to say is that there hasn't been a storytelling like this until I think we get to the grand design style of storytelling that Ed Piscor did with Hip Hop Family Tree, X-Men Grand Design, FF Grand Design, Tom Scioli did. It's very much in that way, in that you're telling this vast, long storyline, you know, page by page and epic by epic.
That I can definitely see the relation between those two things, because every page of both of these are focused on being narrative units.
Right.
I would definitely turn your attention to some Cerebus stuff where Dave Sim is using big blocks of text, bigger blocks of text than Matt Wagner, and yet there are some blocks, particularly in the beginning of Devil by the Deed, that are really big, and it creates I don't want to say a hurdle or a litmus test, but if you're going to get into this book, you got to read a big chunk of small text. And if you can't do that, maybe this isn't the book for you.
Right. And I think
don't worry.
And I think though, once you do like go over the cliff, it's so worth it, and we'll prove it to you quickly. There was a couple, while we're suggesting books that this seems like, Alan Moore straight up drops a few names in this thing. He said he recalls particularly a piece that appeared in the science fiction monthly Galaxy, written by Harlan Ellison and illustrated by the late and sadly neglected Jack Gaughan, Gaughn. And he said, I believe it was called The Region Between.
Oh, okay.
And by setting small passages of text against large and dominating images, it achieved storytelling effects that I have never seen before, nor have seen attempted since, until Grendel. Beautiful intro by Alan Moore there.
Super cool. I'm also reminded of those experiments that Gil Kane was doing in the 70s.
Yeah.
Black Mark, I think it's called, where it's illustration and short, not quite so long, but blocks of text. It's certainly an easier read.
There was a issue of Spawn too that came out right around the time the movie came out, and it's got like the pictures of the movie on the front, and it was also that same way. And that might have been actually the first time that I ever experienced that type of storytelling in a comic. I definitely read that when I was a kid, you know, right when it came out. I was definitely buying Spawn then, and I was just at first I had put off reading it, but then after I read it, I was like, this is a very good way to tell a story.
Yeah, I think one advantage that Matt really smartly takes is that the text is in mixed case font. It looks like it's out of a book. It's typeset, you know, in this like, you know, Times font,
Right.
instead of in a large block of all caps, not necessarily punctuated comic book font. That would make it. Can you imagine trying to read it if
Yeah, it
like
almost
that?
implies like a silliness, which has no place being there.
Yeah. There's a big debate in comics right now about mixed case fonts, and I think a lot of the guys that were at the height of their, like the Image guys, Larson and all that, Kurt Busiek will talk about, it doesn't doesn't work. It's harder to read. But there are books. East of West is a great mixed case font book. I just feel like, if you want this stuff to be accepted as literature, why wouldn't you conform to the rules of standard edited English?
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I would only give repos. No, I don't think that's the right word. I would only excuse people whose comic book presentation is completely like their own. Like those people need to use their handwriting, or need like a Brandon Graham or Jim Lawson. I was reading some books of him today. Like it wouldn't look right with anything but their crazy handwriting in the word bubbles.
Mahfood or our friend Tony McMillan certainly come to mind.
Absolutely. Let's get into this though, because one more thing to note is that in each printing there was colors, different colors. The first printing was Matt himself; he did it all. The Kimiko, Matt did it all as well. Okay, because the Kimiko is just a reprint of what ran in the back of Mage.
And that's like a splattery airbrush.
Right.
Really,
very 80s
I
style.
can't imagine anything else like it. It's so great.
Just beautiful. I mean, and this is a spread that's kind of like really known for the book, and it's much different in the Dark Horse one, and it's much different in the hardcover Dark Horse, which is just black, white, and red. Mm-hmm. And then again, this one is colored by Bernie Moreau. Shout out to Bernie. I had a nice chat with him this week, everyone. He's doing well. And I'm sending him some wizards. And
Catherine Delaney also assisted him, it would seem. I don't know.
That's right. It does say Bernie Moreau and Catherine Delaney. Sorry. And then later you said Chris Pitzer did some work on the omnibus version.
Ad House publisher and friend of the show. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. He should have been on.
Matt has said, and it makes a lot of sense, that the realm of Hunter Rose is black, white, and red. And so it makes sense as a storytelling system to strip the color away, especially in that Dark Horse omnibus editions, or presumably in that hardcover that I've never seen. But there's a part of me, the selfish part of me, that wants to dictate to the Wagners how they should treat their work. Really wishes that Brennan would take a crack at this and really all the black and white work. But it makes sense to me that it's Hunter Rose is this noir anachronism, and it needs to be BW&R. I love it.
Absolutely. So as you said, when we were going through the other books, the Kimiko books, the first couple pages of Devil by the Deep is Kimiko 1, 2, and 3. And it's the way that everything is put together in this book. I don't need to keep showing it. I'll put it up on the screen. The Art Deco-ness of this book is breathtaking. It's beautiful. It's so well done. It really drives home the noir, it makes it feel like, New York City, how it's got all the 30 Rock and stuff. It has all those gothic, characters and shapes and stuff. It's very much like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The design element really creates like a multi-layered effect, and in order to kind of decode the geometry of it, you have to kind of pass through a lot of layers of stuff. There's tons and tons of stuff overlapping, and here we start out with narration by Christine Spar, and it's a scene from the rooftop conversation.
Yeah, where he's like, this is the first time where Grendel Hunter opened up to Argent.
Yeah, absolutely. Christine, sorry.
Yeah, no, and I feel like maybe we can talk about it in spreads here, since it's so vividly. It's really like it spreads,
Christine opens up talking about how she was motivated to write this book to clear her mother's name, but curiosity has betrayed her love, and she was captivated by Hunter Rose, a man who she, by all accounts, should probably hate.
Her mother is Stacy Palumbo, just to make sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Really, really, really powerful stuff. I love this drawing of Hunter. In reading it this time, I noticed that he's got this little sneer in the corner of his mouth. I
Right.
figured the Ninja Turtle head in you really gets a kick out of that.
Yeah, it's that kind of turtle mouth there.
Yeah, man.
And this next page, I realized that I completely ripped it off in my first Monkey Line comic almost without knowing it. I did the exact same layout. And only did I realize it last night when I was reading this.
Wow.
Yeah, that like I completely ripped it off, and I was like, "Is that too much text at the bottom?" No, I think it's fine. But this is a big chunk, and there's a few things that I pulled out of it, especially that it says he was like had a mutation, that he's a mutant, that he was based on some type of advanced genetic mutation, resulting in a much higher usage of almost limitless mental capacity. So that straight up shows that yes, Hunter is. He's a mutant.
This is a spot where I'm really happy to eat crow because I was talking about this a little bit in our first episode, and Matt very politely kept tight-lipped and didn't shame me when I said, "Oh, this is just something that Hunter had said. He's unreliable. He could have made that up." But here, it's the police autopsy of Hunter Rose, who dies at all of 23, 24, 25. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's even younger, man. I think it's
maybe
like
21.
20. Yeah.
Yeah. So the police autopsy reveals the genetic mutation. It says on this spread that he was disinterested in his own early achievements. He wasn't really impressed by them, and that having fallen under the influence of his older lover, Jocasta Rose, the woman who found him at the World Fencing Tournament in London, he had fallen under the influence of his older lover, and he had so emphatically pursued what he took to be her directions. So,
right. And that's where I have something huge to lay out.
Lay it out.
All right.
Her directions.
So, right, what he thought were her directions, what he guessed. Now, what my submission presupposes is maybe they weren't hers. I think that Jocasta is she's like possessed. I want you to think like Leland from Twin Peaks, or there's like a Bob type, that the spirit of Grendel or the spirit of the devil is in Jocasta, and Jocasta Rose, her body's been hijacked by the spirit, and it knew where to go. It knew to look for Hunter. It went to she got with the fencing team because she knew that she had to meet Hunter Rose at this point. She was there. She sought him out. She had these specific things because Hunter Rose was this chosen figure, so that Jocasta had this thing in her that was already pushing her towards Hunter. And so that spirit carried Jocasta and made her do everything. And then once it completed its job, it left, and Jocasta's body was dead. So this spirit came in, killed Jocasta at some time in the past, took over the body, knew its mission to find Hunter Rose, to find Eddie.
Yeah.
And perhaps even when I said the spirit left Jocasta and the shell of the body was done, it actually went into Hunter. Or maybe a piece went into Hunter, and Eddie was dead.
Yeah, I think that's analysis as plausible as any other in part. The parts when it shows them interacting in Volume 1, they're playing chess and talking about life as a game, and talking about, he talks about how incredibly competitive she was, and that I think
everything to hone him in, everything to make him better.
To make him realize that, well, if you're only boring people are bored. Like if you're bored, go and do something about it. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah.
She sought him out. Records revealed nothing of her. And my note says exactly what you just laid out. Could she have had a bit of Grendel in her that she passed on to him?
Right.
And maybe Yeah.
Good.
He died. His parents had died, and he didn't care.
Yeah. Killed by the spirit of the devil. His parents were definitely like taken out because they were another hurdle in the flourishing of the young Eddie.
Yeah.
And it could have even been Joe Costa who killed his parents.
Oh wow. It was all part of the grand design. So anyway, he used his writing. He moves to New York. He is.
Oh, well, sorry. One more thing.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
It also notates
So rich.
that it says that Joe Costa was 36, basically our age, and Hunter was 14. So think about you seducing a 14-year-old girl. That's terrible. That's
yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, that's a big.
It's crazy.
It's an illegal amount of time between.
He's
the
also
ages.
he's an adult.
Right. He is.
He's never a child. Maybe in some of those BW&R stories.
Right. There is such a childness. Yeah.
But he's an adult, and that's why he's like the toast of New York socialite life at 18 years old.
Right.
You know.
And are we turning the page?
I have my note here is that he used writing. He moves to New York, becomes a writer effortlessly.
Right.
He used writing as a Zen-like preparation for what he viewed as his only possible challenge, the complete domination of those around him.
I wrote that down too. Complete domination. That's just like, he's like, the only thing I have to do is just take everything over. Like, that is what my calling is because I'm the smartest man alive. I am the smartest man alive.
Soon he found himself in a position of power over one of New York's many underworld families. He was 17.
Insane.
Unbelievable.
That's what makes me think that he wasn't even 20 when he died.
Yeah, it's like
there's
a few spots where they say like the next 2.5 years, you know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right. But he's always drinking. Oh my God.
And I think that part of his youthfulness and, you know, having written these books and being the toast of the New York socialite town when he was only 16, that's what makes his relationship with Stacy okay, because he was so young, and being friends with Stacy as the only other like young person in this scene, he saw her as a place where maybe he could still, you know, be a kid, or he could still savor the only good part of his life that he can muster, and he sees no other way to not be like mature and to be this right. And so when he's with Stacy, he can like let go a little bit.
Well, I've described it as the best intentions of Michael Jackson.
Yes,
the best.
I don't like that. I don't like.
I'm
Michael.
Sorry. Yeah, Matt draws him really, really young. I mean, like so, like fresh faced. His face, it's not a man's face. His jaw is very peaked and all that.
Right.
Anyway.
And I would say not a white man either.
Yeah, I didn't know about that, and it's funny that he and Stacy both have the same skin tones throughout this Bernie color job. Is he the same way in Matt's colors and Kimiko?
Good question.
Yeah, he's dark.
Yeah, he's kind of darker skinned, yeah. But I mean, it's still hard to tell. But you know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
cool.
I like that. All right, moving forward, we get to. Oh, sorry, were we done with that page? I know we both were like, we have like a full page of notes before the first like couple pages are done, but it's so dense. It's such a dense book that it's gonna be hard.
You got to dig into it. One thing that I was looking at to prepare this was the YouTube channel Strange Brain Parts has a wonderful multi-part Grendel examination, and he's, you know, he writes a script out and he's got lots of motion graphics.
Nice.
Really, really good stuff. So shouts to that guy.
Check it out. I'll put a link to it at the end of the video. So at the very end, though, I'll put it up.
The show notes.
Show notes.
Yeah.
So the next page, we get a little bit of
Argent
and the history of Argent. which, and then again, still we're picking up here from issue 2, Barry Palumbo.
Yeah, Barry's double cross.
Right.
It's for still undetermined reasons. The ambiguity of having been poisoned, having just met with Grendel and Argent. I might have been too late when I wrote that down. I'm not sure what I meant by that.
I think some of the cool things too in the way that Matt writes this is he kind of makes these little subtle jabs at his like earlier writing career. Like he kind of not retcons, but kind of like makes these subtle jokes that kind of clear up something that he might have written before that maybe he didn't, that he wanted to clear up or flesh out a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was just, that's good writing. That's great writing. So, it's telling us about the investigation, all the stuff that we went over the last few issues. So,
and Matt also points us to the possibility that Barry was maybe poisoned by either Grendel or Argent. He had just met with both of them. And he was, for reasons yet to be undetermined, Palumbo is playing an intricate double cross. So, there's a great story. There's great Barry stories waiting to be written. Absolutely. When I asked Matt, when does mining the past become strip mining? I didn't mean that he was strip mining. I meant there's so much more to mine.
And the way that he wrote this, again, every text box could be a full issue. Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, it's insane.
Absolutely. Cool. So I'm on page 11 when Stacy's holding Barry and we see Atkins and all these people. It's interesting to see Jack Kitas and the real estate rival and Richards and Rachel Coleman lined up.
And Atkins, yeah.
And Atkins. You'll note that Atkins, the length of his necktie has become a little bit more normal.
Yes.
Here.
And you can, again, and like I think what you're getting at is the evolution of Matt's style getting better and seeing how he portrays him.
Yeah, well, I think also, we haven't given any props to Rich Rankin, who does the inks on this.
Okay.
He was one of the Kamiko regulars. Did a lot of the. I think he did some Robotech stuff, and he's got a bunch of credits at DC. But the book that I sort of most pinged up at was Shuriken, this ninja book that Jim Rugg has been talking about for quite some time.
Interesting.
So anyway, there was as Stacy is holding Barry, Matt says there's an almost swaggering swipe of irony. Argent too found a friend in this little girl. They both loved her, and shortly after they had both been with her uncle, she found him in his study dead. Wow. So Stacy as the Stacy as this magnet that these dark forces are kind of circling around.
Exactly.
There's
and
some
like you said,
power.
that just shows what the type of person that Stacy was, that she was more than a normal little girl. She had some sort of magnetism, some sort of possibly potential that both Grendel and Argent were attracted to.
Yeah. When they're fighting, Christine notes that, she's described as a waif, this helpless orphan girl, but she's touched by something, that's for sure.
Yeah. Maybe even a little bit of what this demon that I say was in Jocasta.
Yeah.
They found it in Hunter Rose. Maybe there was like a piece of that same spark in Palumbo and Stacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Argent and Grendel have their gazebo battle, and Christine says Christine feels safe in her claim that that Hunter never felt more alive than when he was fighting Argent. And from time to time, Christine will add her own conjecture based on the research that she's done from reading Hunter's logs.
Right.
Anyway.
And sometimes even directly quote from the work of Hunter Rose, his journals.
Right. Yeah, and those direct quotes are really interesting. Let's finally move on.
Let's keep going. Yeah, to the new stuff. Again, like this book is so beautiful and so well done and well written that I mean, I'm enthralled every page, and I just would urge people to read this book, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now we've got Barry Jean. I said that his design doesn't change in the last episode, but his design does change a little bit. And one thing that I would note from the volume 1 is we talked about how he carries Stacy like under his arm like a sack of potatoes, and
Right.
here he's got a little bit more care.
But he's still carrying her in a way that's like hiding, like
We
I
gotta
have
go.
found, yes.
Yeah.
I am a
Yeah,
hunter-gatherer, and I have now gathered the.
I am.
But
Grendel-
Hunter, much like the Shadow and much like these other underworld creatures, he knows everone, and
Everyone,
knows
even this idiot.
Yeah, he knows
Unbelievable.
exactly. He threads his net out. He talks to a cabbie who saw a person, knew a person, and the description was good. Cabbies know people, as did Grendel. And another great sequence here with some beautiful screen tone, and oh my God.
Now, Christine notes, what was Barry Jean doing in presumably Upper Manhattan instead of in the tenements downtown this night? We'll
Right.
never know. This could be more of the, the devil's grand plan. I don't know.
Right. So we'll probably never know what Gene was doing that night so far from the seedy tenements, like you said. But it would seem that his sense of caution was affected. But shortly thereafter, Grendel arrived. And I think it's good to note that, like, I thought that he would just slice him up or something like that. But he doesn't do that.
He doesn't. He only tortures for interrogational purposes.
Right. But I think he probably did, fork him in the face.
That's certainly what it looks like. I really love how the angle of his red fork kind of interacts with the angles of the triangle and design.
Beautiful.
If we were doing the John Madden annotations, that's the one that I would.
Oh my God.
draw
It's on
on
the
that.
screen right now. You can see. It's like, just, man, it's so beautiful. Everything about this is beautiful. Maybe I'm going to make a frame with some of these squares, these red squares that are floating everywhere. I'll make a frame for the whole episode and try to put it up.
Yeah. The red squares are a really nice touch because, at first it's like, oh, it's just a design flourish, but reading into it a little bit more, it's all the possible panels and moments that aren't shown in this format. It's all the stories and fleshing outs and stuff from volume 1 that we have seen moment to moment.
Damn. That's genius, Ben.
I
If
didn't
this
make
was
the book, so.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, when I drew the book, I hope you noticed.
No, but I mean, I wouldn't have gleaned that, If this was like an interactive thing, you could like double tap those things and it would come up and show like, here's this other. So contrary to popular belief, Grendel did not torture Bernie Jean. He seems generally to have disdained torture except for certain interrogational purposes. So he's got Stacy back.
Yeah, and here's a direct quote from the logs. He writes, "I had to go back." This is back to the party with Stacy.
Right.
Argent had seen me with her. The police were surely there, and Hunter Rose was not. Oh, what a devil child. She fought me not, but thwarted me still. Lovely. And so one thing that I really got out of my reading this time is that a big part of the challenge that gets Hunter's blood racing is the feeling of not being in control. Right. And so
you can't have that.
Well, but he loves it. That's the challenge, is putting himself in these situations where he's losing control and
like
still
fighting Argent
and fighting to overcome it. And then we'll get there, but when he's leading the entire, Eastern Seaboard crime scene, Matt says more than once, the pressure was on. Like, finally, cooked himself in there.
Yeah.
Love it.
So good. And we'll turn the page. And I mean, this is definitely what would have been in issue 4 of Kamiko, if it had happened. And I wonder, like, how far he got in scripting that. Did he storyboard? Like, how much of this was written at that point, and where he went? But
yeah. So anyway, he gets himself back to this party, and he's disappointed to find out that Rachel Coleman has already been arrested.
Right.
He hadn't expected the hidden cyanide capsules to be found so very quickly.
Right. So okay, and that's setting up that what? Hidden by who? Hidden by you?
Yeah, hidden by who indeed.
He-
Matt's left it a little ambiguous. Remember in volume 1, Hunter acts like, hey, what happened? Like he's genuinely like surprised, and now it's. And then earlier here, it's like, well, could have been Argent too, poisoned him.
Could have been.
You never know.
But then just the fact that he has this knowledge, like he says cyanide, which kind of like, okay, Hunter knew. And he kind of stashes Stacy on the grounds somewhere that she knows.
On the other end of this enormous space. It must have been huge. I
mean, which is a place where she ran around. I mean, that's where she lived.
That's her home. Yeah. So here Christine says that in the logs, Hunter admits that he was rash. He admits that taking her was rash. Soon enough, he would see to her well-being.
Right. And then we get some nice lair action here coming up next page.
Yeah, but he also notes that he was frustrated that the police were so stupid that they couldn't catch him.
Right, and that they didn't even all they needed was one clue, and they were just like,
yeah, I'm like, all right, case closed. Yeah, call full Larry. Mm-hmm. This really speaking of closing cases, this really closes our discussion on Larry that we've been having about what exactly Larry knows as someone with his ear to the ground. He gets a wonderful description as someone who is sort of tolerated and underestimated, and people just kind of air their dirty business around him because he's a wonderful gossip, and you kind of give what you get, but he's probably helpless.
Yeah, but he really is duplicitous here. And he says, yes, very strange, I said. Why not come to my penthouse tomorrow, Lair? We'll have lunch. Lair would love to. And that's kind of just like, Hunter's like, all right, I'll bring you into the fold, but we'll see. We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, he besides Argent and Stacy, he was the only other person to deduce.
And which at this point though, we haven't seen Stacy find out he is Grendel though. So So that's Christine
spoilers.
saying, yeah. Well, no, Christine says it right here though.
Right. So that within his his career, the length of the Doors,
the 5 years.
Right, the 5 years of burning ever so brightly.
From the Doors to LA Woman.
Yeah, I'm reminded also of cartoonist Von Bodie.
He was only 5 years too?
He was active for like 7 years. I mean, depends on whether or not you count the fanzine years, but most of that stuff is from 68 to 75.
Well, that's the same with the Doors. It depends on if you count the Ray and the Ravens years, if you count the
Super cool. Yeah.
All right, turning that old page.
Love it. Helpful Larry.
And so they're talking about Rachel Coleman and the case, the trial of her, which is really, I mean, they obviously didn't need much to throw the book at old Rach.
Yeah, I had a question here about Argent taking the stand to testify. This was one of the spots where I think it's a little bit over my head. Mm-hmm. So Argent takes the stand to testify that Palumbo had been involved in a scheme to betray Grendel, and I'm just not sure what the implication is. Maybe there's something that we don't. Maybe there's something about Grendel's public persona that we don't know, because Grendel is still new to us, but in this world, he's a known figure. Something's just not working for me because I'm a dummy.
To testify that Palumbo had been directly involved in a scheme to betray Grendel. Right. You would think that he would say something like he was in a scheme to help Grendel is what would
help to incriminate him.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I was a little thrown off by that, but it's very minor. They give Rachel Coleman the chair.
The chair, man. Death immediately.
She gets the chair.
Jesus.
2 weeks after the trial, Hunter Rose applied for the legal adoption of Stacy Palumbo.
Right. He was 18 years old when he adopted Stacy, it says later. Mm-hmm. AKA My Little Chickadee, which he writes in order to sway the people. It says he wrote it like over a weekend. He just stream of consciousness, 3 days, like boom.
3 days. Now in the custody battle, they brought in all manner of character witnesses and character background, a complete persona. No one ever came forward to break this illusion. Not even Volume 1's Tilden, who showed up in that very first Primer 2 story. Eddie, it's you. Oh, it's this fucking guy.
Oh no!
Like,
we need to kill everyone.
Yeah. So like, it was such a complete persona that they had sort of built around him, almost supernatural.
Yeah, I'm sure that Grendel. I wonder if there's something where he faked the death of Eddie, or did something to make it, to try to differentiate for, people who knew Eddie from school, or who was his childhood best friend, or
yeah. Well, this is where the pre-internet anachronisms really work in Matt's favor.
Exactly. Yeah, because you can't. There's no photos on his MySpace.
Christine makes a note here, flashing to the future in reference to My Little Chickadee, that after Grendel was outed as Hunter, all of his books were placed on undesirable literature lists, or at least My Little Chickadee. But I would read into that his entire library would kind of be flagged. If you read these books, you're a psychopath. Yeah, well, see how that works out in the future for the saga.
Like Catcher in the Rye or something.
Yeah, right.
It made it more popular. So people, and I'm sure, these denizens of the deep, as Zappa would say, or these dark people surely would read those books. And I wonder, do those books exist? And are they revered by these people who, the Grendels in the future? Or, did Epi Thatcher find a secret copy of, or whoever, are these books revered, or are they completely destroyed?
Right. Well, Matt talks about these books. One could never write these books. I don't want to read the books, but I want to know what they're about. And I would love to see a story that takes place during this trial of a book club of people and the supernatural effect that it has on them. And oh man,
dude, we have a full Black, White, and Red to write. We have all these.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we were batting an idea. You have an idea for a story like that we kind of batted around a number of months ago.
Oh yeah.
For a project we'll discuss later. Now, I really like regarding Stacy's wardship. Christine writes, it was possibly one of the only good intentions of the man who was Grendel.
Right.
One of the only good things he ever did in his life was try to protect this girl who he saw reflected in himself.
Yeah, but I mean, we honestly don't know his true intentions, but for all intents and everything we've seen, they all seem to be positive. But then again, it might just be. I think it's good. I don't want to read into any bad intentions.
I totally agree with you. It's good.
Yeah.
And in the BW&R stories that we see, they're mostly, I don't want to say having a great time, but she's doing okay. In here, their relationship has ups and then down, based on what happens between Argent and Grendel in a number of different conflicts. Let's move on.
Let's turn that old page. And here we have another beautiful spread by Matt, not stacked, I guess. What would you call these?
These ones, these verticals?
Vertical, yeah. It's all vertical with this beautiful, frills at the top by Matt, who's just, God, he's so good at layout.
Yeah. So now we're getting more into the relationship between Grendel and Argent,
and the effect that Hunter and Stacy's relationship had on that of Stacy and Argent.
Yeah. So as My Little Chickadee came out and Hunter wins the case, Hunter is ingratiated by society. They love him. They see him as this great, oh my God, what a guy. And Argent loses more face, and Grendel's criminal intensity rises. That amazingly powerful image of him holding the fork
beautiful.
Up.
Yes.
His intensity rose. Yeah. Now the economy was in general very strong at the time.
And I think he means the crime economy.
Okay. I thought it was a reference to Reaganomics or something
Oh,
like that,
maybe.
which is
Maybe.
the crime economy. So fine.
Yeah. So this is talking about how Grendel is really in charge of the crime, and through his leadership, the mobs, you know, well, his operations reach deeper and deeper into the bowels of the city, and other mobs of long standing began to feel the crunch, the twist of Grendel's fist upon
Yeah,
steel.
but it wasn't a big enough challenge for Hunter, and so he began to seek out Argent
Exactly.
on
He's
top
like,
of running these mobs.
these fucking idiots. I don't even.
I think it's less of like, oh, if I can get rid of Argent, my criminal enterprises will be easier. I don't think it's that. It's the only thing that is challenging to me is Man-Bat, so let me go get him. You know?
I mean, it makes total sense for the type of person that he is. I mean, like I said, this kind of shit becomes a drug. It's like, you search for that high that you only have been getting when you don't know if you can defeat this person. Like, he can defeat all these crime bosses who, these aren't smart dudes. These aren't high class geniuses that Hunter is batting heads with on multiple levels. Only his Argent, anything that challenges him. And maybe even in a way, Stacy challenges him in that same way.
I hate to say it, but I get a little bit lost by the last two panels where Argent makes an attack on the docks and a short battle with deckhands ensues. The police arrived in an amazingly short amount of time. The evening was a bloodless one. I think it's like a sting that goes wrong. Like,
well, I think it's Grendel kind of is trying to set something up to turn the public's view of Argent.
Right. It was one of Argent's only non-violent apprehensions. It served to strengthen.
Sorry. Right.
No, I think you're right. But it serves to strengthen the wolf's failing public image.
Oh, that's right. Wait, okay, so that makes him look better. So this was something that they thought was set up by the police in order to make Argent look better in the public eye.
Oh, it was a PR stunt.
Right, exactly.
Interesting.
Right. And so then you have this panel of Grendel at the top kind of being like, I see you. You're trying something here. This was not a dumb move.
An obviously contrived effort on the part of the police to exonerate
the wolf.
I gotcha.
So there's all these different motives at play. And Hunter's not the only one playing chess here.
Mm-hmm.
The police and Argent have something, in mind. They got some PR minds going at it. And obviously, as we turn the page, another incredibly beautiful spread. Matt, you're so good.
Yeah, really, really good.
It's endless, the beauty and creativity that Matt puts in every single page here, man. God, I love it.
Yeah, man. It was the logs become jauntier, less introspective. His blood was beginning to race. His opponent was back. The game was anew. Wow, unbelievable!
Right.
And here we have. So I have a question here. On the next page, it talks about how Argent would visit Stacy because they have a pre-existing relationship, and Hunter would sometimes come home earlier to catch Argent on his way out and
kind of plant some
tip him
seeds.
Off. Yeah, and tip him off to. So Argent would always know where Stacy was. Now, it is said later on that Argent has a very sensitive nose.
Yes, it does say that, Ben.
And yet here he cannot smell out Hunter.
Can he not, or does he choose not to for Stacy? To keep face in front of Stacy because he knows
she's
their relationship.
Well, Stacy's the only thing that keeps Argent good. I hadn't thought about that. That makes a lot of sense. You're a smart guy. You're a smart guy.
Hey, man, you bring it out of me.
Cool.
But it is interesting the face that's on Hunter Rose here as he's shaking hands, and the bottom circle here in the bottom left where he's kind of very dastardly, very devilish, our game. The game is afoot, and Hunter Rose is a skilled player.
Look at Argent's face on the left. How enchanted he is by this kid. How softened he is by her. Really incredible.
Yeah. Again.
Here's Tommy Nunzio with the hot spice.
Hey, Nunzio. Is he smoking a joint there? I mean, who holds a cigarette like that?
Look at it. Look at the way it tapers off. It's obviously a joint. So
some more action going down. Nunzio.
Yeah, Tommy Nunzio comes in with a hot tip. Argent is present at his questioning. So Argent's relationship with the cops. Argent has a private line with the cops. I asked you last night, does he have an office over there?
Yeah, I think he probably does.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
does he
man.
have like a little pair of glasses that he puts on when he's got to like read briefs and stuff?
Right, yeah.
And does he like every now and then he like rips his papers because he's like, shit, these damn nails. Why do I have dog's fingers?
Oh man. So Nunzio brings the hot spice directly to Argent that a hit's going to go down at this time and place, and for the first time in
over
2.5 years?
Yeah.
In over 2 years, Grendel was going to take a personal contract on a hit. So
right, and that doesn't necessarily say that, like, now he's like 20. When he adopted Stacy, he was 18. It just says that the last time Grendel took a personal hit was 2 years ago. We don't know exactly when.
So he's at least 19.
Got to be at least 19 because he started when he was 16.
Yeah, it says he was 17 when he was Grendel. Anyway, so the hit's gonna be on this guy Anson Reynolds.
Right.
And my note is that I wonder who in Matt's life was named Anson.
Right.
Since there's two characters who.
And he told us straight up that he liked to name them after people.
Yeah. Who does he want to kill? And kill twice. Jeez.
And it was supposed to take place at the Stone Bayou, Reynolds' sprawling home the very same evening. What's more, it would be public. Reynolds was throwing a large party to announce the beginning of several new film projects. And as a result, many members of the press were sure to be present. So this is Grendel is staging a huge event, and he wants it to be public. He wants everyone there. This thing is going to be a big to-do.
And Argent is on creepy security detail in the tree.
Right. He's
Security's
on the roof.
tight. They switch the caterer
at the last
11th
minute.
hour. Yeah.
So everyone who signed up for chicken, it's actually steak now.
Yeah, right.
And there's no veggie option. Take it or leave it, fools.
So Stacy and Hunter are there on the floor.
Yep.
Clapping it up as Anson's about to make his his MCU what is it called? Wave 5 announcements.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's it called? Whatever.
Yeah, Wave 5. Yeah. Or Wave 4. Yeah, he's about to talk about all the new.
About how Sam Raimi is going to be directing Multiverse of
Doctor
Madness.
Strange.
Yeah.
It's the Kamiko verse that they're pitching in here.
Yeah. The Robotech movie is about to come out.
And Johnny Quest, there's a new cartoon about to start.
Fish Police.
Ooh, the live action Fish Police going to be bomb. It's going to be darker, and it's going to be on Kamiko All Access.
When suddenly, Hunter has set up a holographic and gland pheromone ejecting spray to lure Argent over a skylight where Grendel is about to throw his fork. A holograph of Grendel's about to throw his fork, and it's a hologram.
Oh man! And boy, Argent falls for it. He pounces, and what the wolf found was only a far too fragile skylight. And then we have a direct quote from Grendel's logs: "As he fell, and as I saw him fall, I knew the terrors in his mind, the press." An incredible public spectacle, and Stacy.
Yeah,
so everything
was gone from this guy. A guy who never really had anything is going to lose the only shred of usefulness in his life. I really, there's two things that I would note in the art here.
One is the legs.
Oh, the legs, right? The legs are so weird.
What were you gonna say? Sorry.
The thick thighs. I would note that the only person who you could see Stacy's the whites of her eyes. You talk a lot about Matt's kind of shadow inky eyes, and here you can see Stacy's eyes.
Right.
And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was the range of types of cameras that are used across this spread. Not only in this in this one where someone's got like a camcorder and
theirs looks like an 8mm and like
weird shit. And then in the one where we see Anson for the first time, people are using old timey flash bulbs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that's got that kind of Batman animated series.
Right. Unsure of what time frame this really is taking place in. The noir feel.
And I think that once you go to Devil's Legacy and even later on in the saga, there's clunky technology that kind of has a sci-fi feel,
but then it's the clunky technology, the flash bulbs, but then also a holographic projector.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Yeah.
And so you think Hunter built that holographic projector?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Why not? Why wouldn't he be able to?
He saw it once on Mr. Wizard, and then he was like, I can do that.
Absolutely.
Next page, another gloriously beautiful spread of Stacy. This really affected Stacy.
Yeah.
It affected her for the rest of her life.
And the first times I read this, I was sort of like, I don't want to say I wondered why, but it's like, it's pretty disturbing. His grotesque flailing body, he falls from 50 feet up, he takes a fall. This isn't the one that paralyzes him, but he must not have been too happy. I mean, he wasn't.
No. I mean, it really ruined his life. Argent filled a very special role in her young mind, that of a big, comforting buddy, but the image of his grotesquely flailing body would never leave her, and a rift began to form between the two of them. Their visits grew shorter, less frequent, and then, it finally ceased altogether, following which Stacy entered a period of extreme depression, and I don't know this word, lassitude.
It's like, I think it's like ennui, like anemic laziness kind of.
Gotcha. Like complete lack of ambition or, get up and go.
Yeah.
All right. So next panel here, we've got Stacy, and she's like looking up at Hunter, who's like keeps trying to console her. He's trying to console her, meaning like he's trying to get the solar energy. He's trying to, fool them into believing that solar energy can't be used to maybe in the future fuel some sort of mechanical Grendel.
Yeah. Well, the shock of seeing his Argent's grotesque flailing body formed a rift between them. Their visits grew shorter, less frequent.
Yeah.
And then her big comforting buddy stopped showing up all the same. Hunter tries to cheer her up. And in his writings, this is the closest, Christine says, that Hunter ever comes to self-reproach, ever regretting that he had caused this rift between his adopted ward and his enemy.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably a time too where he was like, I didn't think this through the whole way. Like, all I was thinking was Grendel, and maybe it was a point in him where he was like, kind of that Batman thing, like, am I Batman or am I Bruce Wayne? What's the real me? So perhaps there he was like, he thought as Grendel only.
Oh, that's cool. Well, anyway, he took out those feelings on Tommy Nunzio, who was later found in the trunk of a car with the G carved into his stomach.
Man. It should be noted that following this incident, Argent's efforts focused solely on Grendel and became even more violent than had previously been the case. Like, he's like completely leaving police work behind, and he's like, my duties now are to kill this MFer that took away my best friend, took away my credibility, and, again, sent me to the shadows.
Right. And so what we get on the next page describes their war over the next 2.5 years.
Yeah,
so that's a span of 4.5 years.
Oh, okay. There you go.
That we're talking about.
So now we are into his 20s. You're right.
Right. So he's like between 21 and 22, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it talks about Grendel's empire growing, and it describes Grendel has one rule. Matt says, "Don't mess with children," but there's actually 4 areas that Grendel excises from his criminal empire. They are dealers of angel dust, child pornographers, evangelistic frauds, and land moguls. So
does yours say PCP, or did you just?
No, it says PCP.
Okay, but you changed it because
I changed it because I'm hip.
Okay, I wasn't sure if maybe that was like changed in another, like if you're reading from the omnibus or something, I'm reading from an older book or something.
No, I just want to be cool.
But you succeeded, Ben. I was just wondering. Yeah.
And it's funny that Barry seemingly gets a shout out in the list of activities that Grendel won't abide by. Right. I understand obviously the first one, the child pornographers, but like these other things seem somewhat like random.
Hey, yeah, well, yeah. Maybe
especially because when I just read Shadow Grendel, he tells Larry, like, we make X amount of money in narcotics alone. So just PCP.
Right, yeah. He sells a bunch of coke and weed and stuff. But another thing too that's interesting, his hate for the evangelistic frauds.
Yeah.
Which in the future straight up co-ops the name of Grendel, and Grendel is an evangelistic fraud, you know? Wait, is that I guess that's not true. I guess I'm saying it wrong.
Well, are you talking about God and the devil?
I'm talking about God and the devil. Yeah, Grendel is not the church. Grendel fights the church.
Right.
The church is
so this is the
evil.
seed of that idea.
Right. And perhaps that this character that I think exists, but Matt says doesn't, that carries some of these ideas along, which is a hatred for the fake religion that was brought up, you know, whereas, you know, I'm sure this deity, this spirit that has been traveling for all time knows the truth about religion or whatever, you know. So he's like, I know that's fake because I was there.
This is where my notes end.
Nice.
When I got so into it, I couldn't stop to take notes. Also, the text becomes kind of shorter. But there is one thing that I recall in this last panel where they describe the war between Grendel's people and the cops led by Argent. They were like generals leading armies, and lots of people died.
Yeah.
And it's really funny to imagine, you know, that means real specific liaising between Argent and the cops. Probably more so, you know, Batman will go into Arkham and, you know, interview people, but Batman doesn't. If they want to reach Batman, they turn on the light. If you want to reach Argent, you call the cops.
Right. And Argent, this just serves to your point that Argent's got a desk. Argent, does he wear pants and shit?
No, you can't wear pants with legs like those.
Okay, so his just dick is out all the time. He's just naked.
Yeah, I get.
Dick's flapping in the wind.
Well, if he's like a dog, it's, you know, inside the lipstick.
You think it recedes?
Yeah, the red thing doesn't come out.
So what if he, you know, he works for the police. He's a seasoned officer. A policeman dies in action, and they have a service for him where everyone's wearing dress uniforms and stuff. Yeah. Argent's just there, dick flapping.
I don't think Argent. I don't think he has to show up. I think he's like a.
He doesn't show up to formal events.
He doesn't. He doesn't deal with people. He's only drawn to committing violence.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't deal with people.
He doesn't have a desk. He has a roof nook where he has like a birdhouse.
Because otherwise he would have been able to socialize and, you know, get over Stacy, or not need an 8-year-old to be his only friend.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And anyway, the over 2.5 years, the body count rose on both sides. The city lumbered on like something struck with a cancer.
Oof. You were saying this is where your notes end. My notes ended a little bit earlier. Actually, no, I have a little bit more. But my notes ended with a T-shirt design I want us to do. I texted you last night. Did you see it?
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay, well, I had got to be calling the actions of Grendelin. So he's out there Grendelin. So I thought that we need to make a Keep on Truckin' shirt that says Keep on Grendelin and have it be the Arcrum style guy, but it be Grendel with the fork. So we'll be making that.
Well, just don't take it to the Small Press Expo.
Okay.
Anyway, so from all indications in his logs, the distance that had arisen between Hunter and Stacy following the incident with Stone Bio was the driving force between them.
Well, but it was also what led to his anger and the wave of terror that Grendel soon launched upon the public. So, Hunter's unable to deal with the feelings that Stacy not talking to him is causing him. His one source for happiness is slowly fading. And so that candle is slowly going out and he's succumbing to hatred, fear, anger.
But however, pressure was very high on him at this point, and his fire was burning bright because he loves putting himself in situations where he's just on the edge of I'm out of control, but I'm still dominating everything. And Stacy's happiness. It seems to me that, like, and I've had this thought a few times over the last week, is that the one thing that would have really been a challenge for him would have been to have focused on being a parent.
Yeah.
And to like develop Stacy's talents and to it's the thought of him as like a stage parent to Stacy or something like that, or to bring out these prodigy talents in her, whether they were creative or literary or whatever. That would have actually been.
Oh yes.
It would have been a challenge to do the right thing.
Yeah. And so then that he decided to really plot this total domination plan that he was looking for. And apparently Larry was out traveling the globe. Well, it doesn't say the globe. He was out there just traveling for Grendel, planting seeds and selling, basically going city to city, selling Grendel franchises to different mobs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess Hunter can't be everywhere at once. And I sort of wonder if perhaps Larry has a little bit of the spark in him as well. Because I get it that Hunter can't be everywhere, but like, does Hunter, like, how talented must Larry be to actually be useful?
Really, he must really be like. I don't know. Did it ever say what his like day job was or anything? Because surely he quit it now and works solely for Hunter Rose.
I think he's just intended to be a socialite with a nose for gossip.
Yeah. And he goes around selling these, like I said, Grendel franchises, which kind of morphs kind of later how each city has these different Grendel factions.
Yeah.
In the future, and I don't know
Way
if that was like, that was. I mean, maybe that seed was planted through these different Grendel reigns. And I would even wage to say that if you're in a gang in another city of Grendel, I'm betting that you're doing the shit. You're doing the eyes like they portray in the future. You're putting on war paint, or you're getting the logo tattooed, or or painting the G.
Absolutely, painting the G.
Yeah. Like that all stuff starts up, I'm sure, right here, and it continues with people forever and into that future. I would wage to say, because within 2 weeks, Benjamin. Within 2 weeks occurred the infamous, flamboyant precision slayings of 23 East Coast crime bosses, which soon came to be collectively known as the Seaboard Massacre. Wow. So, I mean, that right there, this page right here, that's a full run. That's like a 10-issue series of Grendel right there. Like, think about that. That's 23 issues right there.
Yeah, and it's visually presented kind of like a gambler's wheel.
Right. It's beautifully done too. And like I said, each sliver right there is its own issue of like
because you got to set up who these guys are, who's the guy in Montreal,
the travel,
and Atlanta, and everywhere in between.
Larry planting the seed, who's the people.
Yeah.
Does he also schedule like a Hunter Rose book tour signing at those? So like he's got like a Hunter Rose book tour, and in each of these cities, he's slaughtering the crime boss by night and by day signing autographs at Borders.
Well, Larry's. I don't think Larry's doing the killings. Is that what you're?
No, I mean Hunter Rose.
Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter Rose has a book tour, and so he's there for work, and
yeah, I don't know. And then everyone's getting a call. Every local police station gets a call where Grendel claims responsibility.
Yeah, he was quite publicly, voicing his position as Lord of the criminal East Coast. Dun, dun, dun! Next week on Keep on Grendlin'.
Can you believe that we thought we'd be able to get through the entire thing?
No, that's insane.
In one episode?
There's no way we could do that.
This was really challenging because, I think that we were both really in our element talking about moment-to-moment storytelling and layout. And this is it's like reading a book, without picture. I mean, it's got pictures. It's got great pictures, but...
And there's so much to talk about each page. Like we're saying, there's so much that you can go in, go out. And
yeah. But we weren't even talking about the images. We were just talking about the meat of the narrative to really try to understand what's going on with the complex Batman Joker shit and all the other stuff.
God, I love it. I'm so excited about talking more about this book, honestly. And it's so good. And this just goes to show why we love Matt and why he's such a great storyteller. Like Alan Moore said, who's a creative and is able to tell stories in so many different amazing ways.
Yeah, man. This was really a main event, and I think in retrospect we'll be happy to have done it over the course of 3 hours instead of just one episode.
Absolutely. Well, great. I think we can end it there. We'll slash the air with our electric forks and get on a Grendelin.
Keep on Grendlin.
Yeah, Vivat Grendel, Ben.
VG. That's 4 in the box.
They be fast. Actually, we be slow this time.
We be slow this time, yeah.
Because there's a lot to cover. Thank you, Matt Wagner, again. Ben, Vivat.
Till next time.
Tonight